The majority of people who use drugs are not misusing them. We know that the Misuse of Drugs Act labels all use as misuse, but the reality is if we care about harm, then it's somewhere between 85 and 97% of people who use drugs on a regular basis who are not harmed by them in any significant way.
Criminologist and Know Your Stuff's chief executive, Wendy Allison, is emphatic. Providing information and drug testing sites for users, rather than punishing them, can save lives.
If you could wave a magic wand on drug reform in New Zealand, what would it look like?
It would look quite a lot like the recommendations that were made by the Law Commission back in 2010, which one of their first ones was to repeal the Misuse of Drugs Act and replace it with legislation administered by the Ministry of Health. To add to that, if I had a magic wand, I would also replace all of the people who've spent their careers working in a prohibition paradigm with people who are actually interested in evidence-based drug law and a law that is focused around the well-being of people and not just criminalizing people.
It is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
Because we've had 50 years of punishing people and criminalizing people and driving drug use underground and saying just don't do it. And we've got more people using drugs than ever before and more people being harmed by drugs than ever before. So the Misuse of Drugs Act doesn't reduce use, it doesn't reduce harm. It's time for something different. Let's just do that.
Wairarapa DHB recently dealt with 12 fentanyl overdoses in a 48-hour period, after the distribution of the white powder substance sold as cocaine and methamphetamine. 1 week later, a man in the Tararua district was found overdosing from fentanyl. Officials expect the drug spiking to be from the same batch. The New Zealand Drug Foundation says it's nothing short of a miracle that there were no fatalities.
The biggest concern is that fentanyl is being misrepresented as other substances, and because fentanyl is active in such a small dose and these other substances are active in larger doses, the concern is that people will take that larger dose thinking it's cocaine or methamphetamine, and then they will have a significant overdose of fentanyl.
In an email to Local Focus, Carterton District Mayor Greg Lang says it's really concerning to hear of a dangerous substance such as this in the community, and the council will continue to provide support to local police and Wairarapa DHB. He urges the public to check on friends and whānau to make sure they are aware of this issue and not to be afraid to call an ambulance if you or a friend become unwell after using a synthetic drug.
A lot of people are not familiar with what drug checking is, and so we have people who don't know about it, people who are afraid of it because they're not aware that we've been doing it for 8 years and no, we're not the cops and we're not about to arrest them and we don't actually care about that stuff, we just want them to not die.
The Drug Foundation hosted pop-up testing facilities in Masterton and Carterton in the hopes that people would know the substances they're ingesting are in fact what they paid for. Fentanyl test strips are available in person and online at the New Zealand Needle Exchange for $2 each, with reagent tests available online at the Hemp Store Aotearoa and Dance Safe for other substances like MDMA.
When we talk about illicit drugs, people in their teens start to encounter illicit drugs and make decisions about them. And often the first thing that happens is that they'll try it and discover that they haven't grown an extra head or suddenly become addicted to heroin because they had a puff on a joint. And then they will go, well, that was actually kind of fun. I enjoyed myself. None of the things that my parents told me would happen have happened, so what else are they lying to me about? And the reality is most of our clients are not taking drugs to escape, and they're not taking drugs because life is painful. They're taking drugs because they enjoy their life and they enjoy drugs, and drugs on some occasions enhance an enjoyable experience. For example, MDMA, a night out dancing, is enhanced for most people by taking this drug. So it's not necessarily the stereotype we have is that everybody who uses drugs is doing it because they can't handle reality. Most people are just normal people who want to have a good time.
In terms of problematic drug use patterns, Allison says it's related to people not understanding the scientific facts about drugs and how they work inside the body.
A number of our clients who are experimenting with drugs at a young age, teenage people, are not aware that MDMA is a substance that should only really be taken once every 4 to 6 weeks, that it actually takes your body time to recover the brain chemicals that are required for MDMA to work, and that in the meantime, you're going to experience certain things in your mind because those chemicals have been depleted. People don't know this because nobody tells them about using MDMA safely. They just say don't use it.
But Wairarapa youth coach Tara Robinson finds some young people are using cannabis and pharmaceuticals or Panadol to self-medicate rather than for fun.
In my role, I find that a lot of the kids I deal with talk to me about their drug use. We have quite an open relationship with these conversations, as being open with it is the only way to learn and to be safe with what you're doing. The biggest motivations we find with doing drugs, particularly here in the Wairarapa with the young youth, is escapism, as well as trends and just that anxiety, people self-medicating. They don't necessarily feel good on drugs prescribed by doctors, so they think this is the next best solution. The other big motive we find is parental involvement, so families who kids are born into drugs.
We are exposed to drug use from day one. Our parents drink coffee, they drink alcohol, they take Panadol, they take anxiety medication, and then suddenly at 16 we're told, nope, don't do drugs, and yet we've watched people do drugs our entire lives, and then sent out into the world with no information.
Robinson says the recent introduction of spot testing students and sniffer dogs in Wairarapa schools won't help, but involvement with harm reduction agencies will.
We do know that it is just a fact, and it's how do we deal with it safely?
At-home drug testing kits are an easy way for people to check and be safe. The Drug Foundation says more funding is needed to support regular testing sites outside of Auckland and Wellington, with the current best bet being at-home testing. The New Zealand Police recommend using allout.org.nz, where people can source fentanyl test strips to check if a substance contains fentanyl. More information on drug checking events, harm reduction, and home test sourcing is available online at thelevel.org.nz for people wanting to be safer when using drugs. Ellie Franco, Local Focus.